putting too many of them out recently. It makes me wonder whether I'm keeping the quality high, but I hope so. You stumbled a little bit over the title of the book, What Most Women Want, What Few Women Find, because that's a retitling of Men of Strength for Women of God. I just find it hilarious that we've retitled Men of Strength for Women of God with this new sort of checkout counter salacious title, What Most Women Want, What Few Women Find. What's really fun about it is that as you go down the cover, it says, What Most Women Want, What Few Women Find, F. LaGard Smith. I particularly like that. But as I announced to the people who are at the preacher's luncheon today, I'm afraid that, boy, something's happened here. 2 weeks ago, the old bachelor here, 47 years old bachelor, I'm engaged to be married now after all this time. Thank you very much. I don't know what's happened here. This is what most women want, one woman found. We're going to have to retitle the book, I guess, if even we could say that most women wanted me. You know, the subject that we're coming to is just such a contrast to the fun that we could have all day long about bachelorhood and marriage and so forth. This, when choice becomes God, is just a burden. The other books that I've written are interesting controversies, interesting issues, important issues, but there's a way in which the issue of abortion is just a watershed issue in our time. It's like the issue of slavery in its own day. It's got that kind of, awesome heaviness about it that is not like even, in some ways, the controversy I talked about today at our luncheon, hermeneutics, because it says a lot about who we are as a society and where our values have gone. It says a lot about where the hermeneutics issue fits in context, and other things that we might talk about. We tend to think, I think today, that we tend to think that abortion is the biggest battle that's going on. But in a way, it's the largest battle, but it's not the war. There's a bigger cultural war going on, and I wish that it were being articulated better by the politicians who claim to be standing up for family values. Oh, how I want to get in there and be in these debates when it comes to family values. We're saying the right words, but it seems to come out as rhetoric. There is a family value struggle going on, a huge battle. And in that battle, abortion is the most important of the battles, but it's a war out there. It's a war with regard to moral choice, and I don't think we sort of realize in a way what's happened. Those of us who are a little bit older, it's sort of the frog in the kettle syndrome. How many of you are familiar with the frog in the kettle illustration? If you're not, for those of you who are not, you know you can put a frog into a pan of hot boiling water and it'll jump right out. But you can put a frog into a pot of cold water, put it on the stove, turn up the temperature gradually, turn up the heat gradually until it reaches a boil, and the frog will not recognize the change in his circumstances until he's cooked. I'm afraid that those of us who are a little bit older, that's where we're at. I think we've forgotten how far we've come from even the comfort zone of the 40s and 50s. I mean, do you not remember as I remember when do you not remember as I remember when divorce was just not that common, especially in the church? And today, even in the church, divorce is just as rampant as it is outside of the church. Do you think that everyone agreed was a bad thing and you didn't see it on the counters at 7-Eleven and AM, PM markets and so forth? And now pornography is on ABC, CBS, and NBC. We watch pornography. What to our parents and grandparents would have been pornography, we're watching it. We're watching it. night after night. And then, of course, abortion. Do you remember when, if you heard about an abortion, it was so rare, it was kind of like a phenomenon, kind of, whereas today, 1.5 million abortions every year in the United States alone. I mean, the times have changed, and it's happened so gradually that we don't recognize what a radical difference it is from what it used to be. That's for those of us who are a little bit older. I do see some who are a bit younger here, and I'm always telling my students, well, actually, I'm always telling my students some pretty profound things, let's face it. You know, they come into my office sometimes after having an exam in criminal law, and they say, Professor Smith, I just can't believe you gave me that low grade in criminal law. I knew your course. I knew your course. And I said, well, did you know it as well as I do? Oh, no, of course not, Professor Smith. Well, there you go. I said, that's the problem. I was not testing on what you knew. I was testing upon what you didn't know, because you know what you know, but you don't know. You ever think about that? You know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. See, if you knew it, then you know it. But because you don't know it, you don't know it. You know? Profound stuff comes out of me sometimes. But young people today don't know a time when it was different. They just assume it's always been this way. They assume that we've been aborting babies 1.5 million of the year forever. That we've had convenient, easy, quick divorce forever. That we've had Playboy staring you in the face as you go into the store forever. That we've had homosexuality just running rampant forever. It's just not true, but they don't know any different. They don't have anything to judge that with. But we've had a moral revolution. And really what I think it comes down to, I've titled the book, When Choice Becomes God, I think it comes down to just a real revolution about moral choice. There's an eminent theologian named Woody Allen who's disappointed me greatly lately because of the almost near involved in. But he wrote the script for one of the most incredible movies of our day, Crimes and Misdemeanors. Crimes and Misdemeanors. How many of you saw it, just out of curiosity? One. Okay, don't see a lot of movies in the Northwest. Well, the content that they have these days, maybe we shouldn't, but I think you'll agree with me that it was just a phenomenal movie with moral implications flowing. I'm not a Woody Allen fan, I don't normally go to them, but a friend of mine called me up and said, boy, have you seen Woody's latest movie? I said, no, and I said, I don't normally go to them. He said, this one you want to go see. So I went out that evening, saw it, and I was moved by it. I was moved by it. It didn't have anything to do with abortion directly, but it had to do with moral choice. And in this particular movie, I'll set it up in just a moment, but there's a Professor Louis Levy in the movie who keeps kind of coming in and out of the movie in Woody Allen fashion there. But he says this: we're all faced throughout our lives with agonizing decisions, moral choices. Some are on a grand scale. Most of these choices are on lesser points. But we define ourselves by the choices we have made. We are, in fact, the sum total of our choices. Well, that's really true. And in this movie, there is the main character, Judah, is a ophthalmologist, very well respected in his medical community. He, in fact, has the latest wing of the hospital being named for him. It starts off at sort of a dedicatory dinner in his honor. He has a lovely wife, children, wonderful family. In short, we would say this is a successful person in every way. He's got one problem. On a business flight, he met a stewardess on an airline and got involved and had an affair. In the intervening time, she has tried to keep things alive, wants to take him away from his wife, and writes a letter to the wife, telling the wife about the affair and so forth. Well, at the very last minute, he intercepts the letter, reads it, great shock, embarrassment, crumples it up, throws it in the fireplace, and burns it up. His wife doesn't know. He goes to his girlfriend, mistress, lover, says, what are you doing? More and more insistent that she's going to take him away from his wife. Well, it seems he has this kind of a low-life, mafia-type scum brother that he never talks to, beneath his dignity to talk to his brother, except on this occasion he goes to him and presents the problem to him. And the conversation that they have is just very telling about moral choice. Let me just read that, and let me just suggest to you that we read into it either a divorce situation or an abortion situation, or both, as we go through this dialogue. And you'll just see that the conversation that they have is more far-reaching than just a man and his mistress. Listen to this. Judah, I'm fighting for my life. This woman's going to destroy everything I've built. Jack, that's what I'm saying, Judah. If the woman won't listen to reason, then you go on to the next step. Judah, what? Threats? Violence? What are we talking about here? Jack, she can be gotten rid of. I mean, I know a lot of people. Money will buy whatever's necessary. Judah, I'm not even going to comment on that. That's mind-boggling. Am I to understand you right? I mean, are you suggesting getting rid of her? Jack, you won't be involved, but I'll need some cash. Judah, what will they do? Jack, what'll they do? They'll handle it. Judah, I can't believe I'm talking about a human being, Jack. She's not an insect. You don't just step on her. Jack, I know. Playing hardball was never your game. You never like to get your hands dirty, but apparently this woman is for real, and this thing isn't just going to go away. Judah, I can't do it. I can't think that way. I can't do it. I can't think that way. Well, we don't know what the intervening time period is specifically, but there comes a night when she becomes more and more insistent and he thinks there is no option, and he picks up the phone and calls his brother Jack and says, do it. And she's killed. He does do it. He does do it. He does the unthinkable in preservation of a lifestyle. He does the unthinkable. How does that happen? I think what happens is that rationalization is an interesting thing for all of us, isn't it? Even those of us who are believers, we rationalize an awful lot in terms of our own moral and spiritual decisions. I think that what's happening in our society is that rationalization of doing the unthinkable has become fashionable. And it's easy for us to get involved in it because we are in such a non-judgmental society. Non-judgmental. People say, well, you know, I mean, I'm not really for divorce, but if two people can't live together, then, you know, who am I to say? You know, I don't want to read any of that dirty literature, but hey, you know, freedom of speech. Don't we have freedom of speech? And I certainly wouldn't want Christian freedoms to be limited, so maybe we ought not to limit pornography and obscenity. No, I'm not a homosexual, but if, you know, if they want to be gay, go to San Francisco, be gay, you know. And then we say, no, I don't believe in abortion, but it's a woman's right to decide. Now, how did we ever get to that point? How did we ever get to that point where we say, I don't believe, but it's not mine to be judged? That they're in a generation, I talked about this at the preacher's luncheon, where we've changed radically the whole concept of morality to immorality to amorality. Immorality is not doing the right thing. Amorality is there is no right, there is no wrong. That's a big difference there. And if there is no right and there is no wrong, then how can we be judgmental about any choice anyone else makes? If we had time to talk about the New Age movement, do we have 3 hours? We could talk about Shirley MacLaine and reincarnation and all that kind of stuff, but the one concept that is important out of the New Age movement is a concept called monism. If I were to talk to you in this frame, I would be talking in one tone. You would call this a monotone, right? We all know what monotone is. It's a oneness. There is a belief system that is called monism. Monism. It's a concept of the world and how the world all fits together. It helps the New Age movement in two ways. The New Age movement says that you and I are God. Shirley MacLaine stands on the beach and says, I am God, I am God, I am God. Points out to her audience and says, as Jesus and Buddha have said, be still and know that you are God. Turning that Psalm 180 degrees around, that I am God, and in effect, you are not. People are saying, in effect, they are God. And this monism helps that, because monism says everything's one. The sky is one, the ground is one, the pews you're sitting on are one, you are one, the grass is one, God is one. You are one, God is one, you are one, God is one, you are God. You are God. That's the scariest part is, if you are God, how do you act? What do we sometimes say when people say, when they do something really, really strange? Who do you think you are? God? You see, because we tend to think that God can do whatever God wants to do. And so if we start thinking that we are God, then we can do whatever we want to do. And if I can do what I want to do and you can do what you want to do, then how can we be judgmental, anyone toward another? You see, we're all gods. But that's not even the scariest part of it all. The scariest part of monism is that if all is one, then there is no distinction between good and evil. If all is one, there is good and there is evil, and there's no distinction. So all the lines between good and evil are blurred in a New Age generation. And then someone says, well, if there is no right and if there is no wrong, then how can I judge my neighbor? Well, there you go. You can't really, can you? Because we would all perceive rightness and wrongness from our own inner understanding of life. So that's where we've gotten to, is a very non-judgmental generation, which is why I think most people who would call themselves Christians in America today, most people who would worship actively in some kind of a church on every Sunday, most people in that category, and I'm not so sure that it's not true within our own fellowship. I'm not so sure about that. I haven't been convinced yet that it's not true. Most people say, I am personally opposed to abortion, but it's a woman's right to choose. I'm not so sure our own fellowship, particularly the younger down demographically you get, the ones more in tune with the New Age. Now, how do we do it, though? How do we implement this choice thing? Because when it gets down to something like abortion, it's very difficult to justify the killing of unborn children. It's just, how do we rationalize that? One of the ways in which we do it is to make non-human the baby that's in the womb. I used to be a district attorney over in Eastern Oregon, over in Ontario, Nisson Vale. We all know where that is over there, next to the largest county population-wise, or land-wise, and next to the smallest population-wise. I think we had more rabbits than people by far. And when I was over there as a district attorney, I used to ride around with the police officers on patrol. I was young, single, what else to do on a Friday night? Go out and arrest drunk drivers. But there were times, rare, but there were times when you'd get someone on drugs, high on drugs, and this was a little bit before the crack time and so forth, but you've probably seen something like this. It's not the Rodney King incident. I'm not trying to equate it to that by any means. But when you've got someone who is literally on drugs and out of control and sort of superhuman powers at the moment, the nightstick is the only thing that you're going to be able to use to get this man subdued. Now, I've never quite, I don't know how many police officers we may have or relatives of police officers. Any in the audience? Before I say what I'm about to say. Most of them are pretty, well, their vocabulary tends to be a lot of four-letter words, frankly. And that may not be true with Portland police officers, but certainly was where I was, and I'll put it that way. And yet, when it came time to have to really pull out a piece of wood, hard wood, and beat it over someone's skull, I've never heard such profanity in my life. And I've never heard such denigration of a human being. In a way, I never quite understood it, but I'm starting to understand it now, I think, like I never did as a district attorney. In order for one human being to treat another human being like that, you've almost got to dehumanize them. You've got to dehumanize them, because if they're a real person, then you just can't really beat up on them in that fashion. Now, I think one of the other ways in which we might demonstrate this is that I've done this before. I think we've got a pretty good balance in the audience with the two aisles here. If you'll be cooperative with me on this one, I know it's a little unusual, but it'll give you a little chance to stretch and so forth. What I'm going to do in a minute is just to ask you, all of you to my right here, to move over into that right aisle, and all to my left over to your right into the left aisle. I'll do that, and then at the back of the room, I've got, Lee's going to help me here with this experiment. We've got a bunch of bayonets for everybody, and we're going to give you each a bayonet. And on command, I want you to, you'll do this, won't you? I want you to rush through the aisles toward each other. When you get in this center aisle, I want you to take those bayonets and just run them through each other, okay? Can you do that for me? No, we couldn't do that, could we? I'm not going to ask you to do that. We couldn't do that. Lee's relieved at the back. He says, what bayonets? We couldn't do that. Or could we? Yeah, we could. If somebody put us in different uniforms, called the other side the enemy, declared this place a battlefield, and said, charge your enemy, we could do that, because men do that. There are people right now, this very moment, who are doing something similar to that throughout parts of the world. They're throwing grenades at each other. They're dropping bombs on each other right now. Sarajevo, under attack. Human beings killing other human beings. But they're not human beings. I'd love to know what they call each other over there. I'd love to know. Because in World War II, in order for us to do it, we had to call the Germans what? Jerry's or Krauts. Nazis, yes, politically, but Krauts. What's a Kraut? Sounds sour, doesn't it? Something you could eat. It's non-human, though. You could kill a Kraut. Pacific Theater, the war with Japan. What do we call them? Japs or Nips. What's a nip? Nippon, Nipponese. But what is a nip? You can kill a nip, you see. What about Vietnam? Charlie was about as personable as it got, wasn't it? Killing Charlie, but we call them what? Gooks. Gooks, yeah, you kill a gook. Well, what's a gook? There's no problem killing a gook. And I love the Gulf War. I love the Gulf War. Boy, it's high tech, wasn't it? We didn't kill people. We killed what? Scuds, yeah. We had target-rich environments. Target-rich environments. We killed tanks. We didn't kill people in tanks. We killed tanks. How many tanks did you kill? Well, we killed 500 tanks. Well, isn't that interesting? The tanks are dead, you know. And there were people inside those tanks that we killed. So when it comes to terminology, that's what helps us to do the unthinkable. Terminology allows us to do the unthinkable. So you're not homosexual anymore. That's got a bad connotation. You're gay. Boy, don't you hate it when a good word is hijacked for a bad purpose? I'm telling you, it just makes me sick every time I see that kind of thing going on. But you're not homosexual anymore, you're gay. And divorce, that's got too harsh a sound. We're growing in separate ways, growing apart in separate ways. Divorce. Pornography. Pornography is not pornography. Pornography is adult fare. Adult fare. As long as it's adult fare, it's not pornography. Adults ought to be ashamed of themselves, acting like kids, peeping. Adult fare. And more to the point of our talk today, you don't have a killing of a child in the womb. You terminate a pregnancy. Or as I heard over in England, you evacuate a pregnancy. You evacuate a pregnancy. Is that amazing? Or we just, if it's termination of pregnancy, you just put TOP on the chart. It's a TOP. What are we doing? A TOP. Are we killing someone? No, we're doing a TOP, termination of pregnancy. You see, all we have to do is change the terminology. And that's That's all it takes for us to rationalize doing an unthinkable kind of an act. Well, how in the world did we ever get to that point? Let's back up for a minute. How did choice become God? How did it happen? You know where I think it happened? I think it happens in the marketplace. I think it happens in the marketplace. Friday night, typical young couple with baby. Maybe not a baby. Let's say kids 8, 9, 10, whatever. What are you going to do tonight? Stay home, go out. There's a choice. You can stay home. You could watch television. If you don't have anything else to do with your life, watch television. Choice used to be 3 channels. Now how many do you have? 50 on cable? Unlimited choice there. But none of those 50 channels are good enough for us. No, we could go out and rent a movie and bring it home. And the VCR, play it there. Unlimited choice almost there. But no, let's go out, they say. Let's go out. Dinner or movie. Well, what are we going to eat? Pizza or hamburgers? Hamburgers. McDonald's or Burger King? McDonald's. Big Mac or Quarter Pounder? With cheese or without? For here to go. Give me a break, come on. Unlimited choice. You eat the hamburger, you finally go off to the movie. Well, there you go, more choices. Used to be 1 cinema, 1 theater, 1 film. That was it. Now you go, what do you got? Two screens here? 4? 8? Under 1 roof? 8? 10? Who give me 10? Who give me 12? 12, 12, 12, 14, 14, 14. What are we up to here in Portland? Anyone know? 10 or 12, something like that? You're behind the times. We got one with 2. Choice becomes God. You see the movie, you, on the way home, of course, you don't dare just go straight home. You got to stop by Baskin Robbins. 31 more choices to make. You know, if you got any money left over. I forget I'm in the Northwest. So you don't have any money left over. So you reach in your back pocket for the old credit card, the guardian angel of choice. Yeah, the credit card. No, but Baskin Robbins doesn't take credit card. No problem. Go right next door to the ATM, automatic teller machine, 24 hours on-demand money. On-demand, unlimited choice. On-demand, unlimited choice. On-demand, unlimited choice. And all of a sudden somebody says a woman ought to have unlimited choice to have an abortion on demand, and it sounds so American. How could anybody dispute it? Choice in morals, like choice in the marketplace. We get so used to it. You know, maybe our first problem is our choice in the marketplace. Everybody keeps wondering about, this is a little aside. Do you mind a little aside? Everybody keeps wondering, why are we having a recession? It's a reality check. It's a reality check. The world is starving, and we've got 6 different kinds of bleach, 40 different kinds of dips and chips. It's a reality check. We shouldn't have this kind of choice. Choice isn't good for us in excess. It's not good for us in relationship to the rest of the world, and it's not good for us in the way that it gives us unrestrained, unresponsible kinds of freedom when it comes to morals. I'm voting for less choice in every respect. I go to England, live over in England, and even though there's a Safeway supermarket which has almost everything, including tacos, taco shells that you can buy, come back to the States, I'm still amazed at how much more choice we have even than England. It's just, I think we forget how much choice we've got and how much value we place on that even when it comes to something like morals. Just overwhelms us. It's automatic. Well, we're also a therapy generation. My apologies in advance to all of you who are Christian counselors, but we are a therapy generation. Everybody seems to be on the couch. 2 things come out of that. One is that there's some real non-judgmental stuff going on, because the therapist generally says to the patient, I don't care what you did, just talk about it. Doesn't matter what you did, just talk about it. And so there's nothing to make a judgment about. Certainly the therapist usually doesn't. The Christian therapist might, but a secular therapist certainly doesn't. And there you go, perpetuation of a non-judgmental attitude. The second thing that happens, though, is that we put form over substance. Form is more important than substance. You killed your mother? Okay, well, let's talk about that. It's like, oh, you killed your mother. Is that good? That bad? Just talk about it. Form over substance is one of the things that happens. So we tend to think in lots of ways, and that's just one illustration, but as a society we put, here, let me not dump on the therapist, let me dump on lawyers. We criminal lawyers, if that's not redundant. You know, we're more concerned about whether the police broke down someone's door to get a bit of evidence than we are that the fact that the guy broke down someone's door to go in and rape, rob, and pillage. We're getting form higher than substance, you see. So when it comes to choice, as long as we have the form of choice, it hardly matters what we're choosing to do, which in the case of abortion is to take the life of an unwanted child. Form is more important for us than the substance. See? Another thing that's happening, and see, certain things feed off of other things. Like, in this case, divorce is one of the things that has changed even in the church, and yet that perpetuates itself in some spin-off kinds of ways. Children who grow up in families that are divorced learn what it's like in a throwaway society. We're not only throwing away containers, actually, this is irony. This is irony here. We have more concern about throwing away containers than we do about throwing away wives, husbands, and children. And some of those same children think, well, if my parents can throw each other away and in the process, in effect, throw me away, then what's such a big deal if I throw away my own baby in the womb? We can get to be a throwaway society right in the womb. These lessons that we learn are very subtle, but they're all around us. Speaking of the school children, in school, of course, and this does get back to lawyers who took God out of the classroom. You know, the biggest problem is not with the inability to pray in the classroom. The biggest problem is not with taking down the 10 Commandments off the wall in the classroom. The biggest problem is that once you remove God from the classroom, there's no ultimate standard of right or wrong. None. And so we get into relativity kinds of instruction, values clarification. Johnny, what do you think about this? Da-da-da-da-da-da comes the answer. Oh, very good, Johnny. Jane, what do you think about this? Da-da-da-da-da, just exactly opposite what John said. Oh, that's very good. You see, we lawyers say, it's not the teacher's role to say, Johnny, you're right, Jane, you're right, or wrong, along the line. You can't make those kinds of judgments. Let them think for themselves and take care of it. Boy, are we not getting to the end of that nonsense? Article after article, finally, thank God, finally, I see article after article where people are saying, got to get those children taught right from wrong in the schools. The only thing that bothers me is that many of their teachers have such wrong ideas about what is right and wrong that there you go, we've got another generation teaching that what is right is wrong and what is wrong is right. Where do we end this thing? But you have this whole value-free, value-neutral education system that people have come up in. And then what do you do at that point? Add to all of that, not only the fact that while they're in the school not being taught values, they're not being taught to read either. I don't mean just to pound on the whole society here, but it's no mystery that we have an illiterate generation. People cannot read, people cannot write. People get all the way to law school, and they can read and they can write, and they're pretty bright, but they don't think the same way as they used to either. They just don't. You know why? We're a television generation. We're a television generation. It doesn't challenge us to think. We're not a book generation. A book, at least good books, challenge you to think. What do you think about this? Do you agree with it? It doesn't do that very much. It's got very soft values in it. All problems are easily solved within 30 minutes, or at least an hour. It's working. Only cops are working, and they're not doing the paperwork. They're just action. Nobody's shown working, so nobody learns to work anymore. I mean, television is getting us to the point where our values, if anything, are morals by media. Donahue, Oprah. Is that where we're getting our values, you see? And because we are a biblically illiterate generation, it adds to the problem. We're not only illiterate, we are a biblically illiterate generation. We don't know the Bible. People in the church don't know the Bible. Young people in the church don't know the Bible. Old people in the church don't know the Bible. We used to be a people who prided ourselves on being people of the book. Back to the Bible movement. We don't read it. As a fellowship, across this fellowship, we don't read it. You say, I do. Yeah. Look at all the empty pews in here today, by the way. Where are all the Christians in the Northwest today? Are they working? Okay. Will they be here tonight? I hope so. Is the church really interested in spiritual matters? Have we gotten back into the Word and being, pushed into interest in what's going on there? And again, I'm not just on a general harangue here. This comes back to basics. If we don't know the Bible, then we don't know the most fundamental basic values that issues like abortion are based on. There's no use talking about you shouldn't kill the babies if there are people out there, as some of my students say, it's not a baby and it doesn't matter because it's all a quality of life issue. Sanctity of life is out the window. No one knows about sanctity of life. My students aren't real sure you got a soul. Made in God's image, what is all this stuff? They don't know Genesis anymore. They don't know that God created us in His image with a soul that lives beyond the grave. We're busy trying to teach people the right way to respond in worship. We're even trying to teach them about Jesus Christ the Savior, the Messiah. And they don't even believe they have a soul that sins, that needs a Savior, that needs to worship in a certain kind of way. We're talking to a generation that's not listening to where we used to be. It's all different. Let me tell you how far different it is. I'm shocked at this, absolutely shocked at this. I teach a class in law and morality at the law school. Unbelievable class. It's so interesting, I wish they would make me pay to teach it. I ought to have to pay. It's just too much fun for any one person to have. It's fun, and yet it's sad. I just go home sad every Wednesday afternoon. It's just 2 hours of seeing people in there whose values are so skewed. So skewed. One of the sessions I do, I put on the board human rights. That's the title. Human rights. And I ask the students, okay, let's fill this thing up. What are the human rights? Oh, they love that. Well, we're rights-oriented. Right to life and right to property and right to travel, even movement, right to speech and expression and on down the line. All the rights you can imagine. We just fill that board. And then I put at the top of an adjacent board animal rights. We all hear about the animal rights, don't we? Everybody's talking about animal rights. And so I said, well, what are the animal rights? Right to life, and right to habitation, and right to territory, and right to nourishment, and a right against cruelty, and so forth. They put a few of those on the board as well, quite a few. And then that's when I hit them with this hypothetical. Is there any distinction between human rights and animal rights? If you look at them parallel, you said there was a right to life for humans and a right to life for animals. Is that the same right to life? Some of my students, here comes the hypothetical. Okay. Suppose I give you the choice between saving hand or, on the other hand, saving the last 500 Bengal tigers. Which would you choose to save? And out of 23 students, I believe it was, 6 chose the tigers. 6 chose the tigers. Isn't that amazing? And I thought, uh-oh, LaGard, you've gotten your hypo all skewed here because, it's preservation of the species, everything from the snail darter to the spotted owl. Everybody wants to save the species. So what I did was this. I said, I'm going to change this around. Suppose that your choice is between saving one innocent human being or, on the other hand, 500 Bengal tigers, but these are not the last 500 Bengal tigers on the earth. There's plenty more Bengal tigers where these came from. 2 students still chose the tigers over an innocent human being. Now, I ask, how in the world, come on, how in the world can you rationalize that? Well, the answer came back, Professor, we always know where you're coming from. We know what you're going to say, that human life is more valuable than animal life. Well, you're right. But here's how it works out. Human life has a certain energy value. So does animal life. The energy value of the human, yes, you're right, is greater by far than the energy value of one single animal. But if you multiply the energy value of one animal times 500, that's greater than the energy value of one human being. Is that amazing? Is that absolutely amazing? See, there's nothing about sanctity of life there. Nothing at all. And by the way, that's a very New Age concept, energy. Even in our fellowship, there's a book out that is talking about the Holy Spirit being energy and God force instead of God. Oh, we got to be careful. Got to be careful. The world is coming in our footsteps on this thing. Listen, if that's not scary enough, 6 out of 23 soon-to-be lawyers out there saying there's no basic difference between right and wrong. By the way, I told the preachers, they also said the Holocaust was not inherently evil. Even my Jewish students said the Holocaust was not inherently evil. Because we can't impose our values on anyone else was the explanation for that. But if all that is scary to you, when was it? A year and a half ago, I was in a Midwestern city, right dead in the middle of America, at a congregation of the Churches of Christ. I was speaking on this subject and several others, but they asked me to speak to the young people during the Sunday school hour. Junior high, high school. Must have been about 50 students in the class. I just thought, let me just see what's going on in Middle America. And I gave them the same routine. List for me human rights. We put them on the board. List for me several nodded their heads. I gave them the illustration, the tigers. 50% chose the tigers. 50% chose the tigers. Middle America, Church of Christ, junior high and high school. And these are the ones who should know the Bible, who should be biblically literate, whose parents probably are biblically literate, who do know Genesis. These kids know the Genesis story, but they're being so influenced by culture in terms of environmentalism and in terms of abortion and choice that they can't get it squared away. They absolutely cannot get it squared away. And that's the context in which we're trying to say something about abortion. So when we come along and say, oh, abortion is killing a baby in the womb, it just goes right over people's heads. If you say that, the first thing you're going to get back is, are you trying to take away my choice? I want my choice of Doritos at the supermarket. I want my choice of ice cream. I want my choice of movies, hamburgers. And I want my choice to kill an unborn baby in the womb. The correlation is unbelievable. We do the unthinkable in the most easily imaginable ways. Change the terminology. Just call it something different. Become non-judgmental. Put the form over the substance. And we just do it. At our next session, I want to talk about the more familiar issues of abortion. I want to talk about the schizophrenia that we live with, where sometimes if a baby is wanted, it's a baby. Virtually always, if a baby is wanted, it's a baby. But if it's not wanted, it's nothing. I want to talk about all that. And viability. All of that. But for now, let's get the big context, because that's where the battle is. And by the way, can I just say this, and I don't want to be political in the least, but that's what supposedly is going on in our upcoming election. There's a grand battle going on. I wish the side that seems to take the right line would be more articulate and understanding of what they're saying. I don't think they are. It grieves me that they do not do that. But the other side scares me to death, because what I see is not just one single issue politics question. I see such a larger picture involved. And I don't know which side understands it. I'm not sure either side really understands it. I don't know where you turn. Let's pray together. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for giving us the honor of making us in your image. Little do we appreciate the risk that you took in giving us moral choice. We thank you that you did not make us robots, that you gave us minds, that we could think through moral issues. God, forgive us for having made such terrible use of our choice. It may not have to do with abortion. It may have to do with relationships, family, and lying and cheating just that little bit. Who knows where each one of us stands in your eyes, because we violated choice so many times. Forgive us for not understanding and appreciating how much choice we have relative to the rest of the world that's starving. Forgive us for our arrogance, for living on a higher plane. Help us to see the bigger issue and the bigger picture, as we're so often want to look at the little things in our life and to live a petty life. Help us to think nobly, think broadly, think widely, think deeply, to see what's going on around us. Not that it's new, not that it's different from the Garden of Eden and the wrong choice that was made there that started it all rolling. But encourage us that we might speak humbly to those with whom we have some influence, that we might shake ourselves first and then help to explain to others how different things are from what they used to be. Help it not be said of our generation as it was said of the generation of the judges. Every person did what was right in his own eyes. Let us look to you for the strength to overcome the temptations to make poor choices, and bless us with the wisdom to make right choices. We pray through Jesus Christ. Amen.